it's going to be difficult not to continue that conversation for a minute.
This is John Perry Barlow.
Hi.
I'm delighted to be speaking with this man.
One of the problems with being a techno-utopian, and there were some that were, kind of obvious at the time, but 20 years ago, I made a lot of giddy predictions about the future, and the weird thing is that all of them have come true, and they're not as much fun as I thought they would be.
Oh, no.
In almost every instance, I used to go around telling people that the internet was not about content. That was ridiculous. It was about conversation, and it would only be, start to become itself as soon as people got over trying to turn it into interactive television and realized that it was, the audience talking that was the deal. But I've been on Twitter for about a year and a half. I've got various, as you, devoted tweet minions. I don't know who they are. But they seem to have an attention span of about 45 seconds. If Jesus Christ had tweeted the Sermon on the Mount, Christianity would have lasted till nightfall. Every once in a while, it's not like you actually get these things. You don't make things up. They're given to you. Really good things suddenly come into your head every now and again. And I'll put, and it will seem profound. It might even be profound. I'll put it out there on Twitter. And I'll get like 25 retweets, and somebody will say, "Who? Cool," yeah. And then it's gone. And conversations persist.
Yes. And you, as one of the co-founders of the EFF, started a big conversation with that. And one of the questions I wanted to ask you was, what were you thinking?
Whoa.
Is that crazy?
As usual, I was trying to get laid, but no, I was thinking.
Because the EFF has changed.
I had this religious experience the first time I ever, got into what I started calling cyberspace. I realized that this was an enormous room that was about to fill up with everybody.
Yeah.
And that it was going to be boundaryless, and that it was going to have all these different cultures in it, and they weren't not going to have any idea how to deal with one another. There were maybe 500,000 people that had email addresses at that point. But I could see, you just do the math, everybody was going to be there.
Right. It was going to scale.
In a relatively short period of time, and there was going to be a huge amount of confusion and upset. And every single existing structure, power relationship of the industrial period at minimum, and probably the entire history of monotheism, which I thought was also going to get severely assaulted, was going to be up for grabs, and there was going to be a shitstorm in there that would require somebody to be defending the right of people to go on speaking as they chose in this medium. Well, it wasn't, I soon realized, a medium, and furthermore, the First Amendment was a local ordinance. And, in fact, rights, as I had thought of rights, were not something that could be ordained. And we had to start thinking about, all right, how do we regulate human behavior in the absence of government? How do we create new structures for human beings to behave responsibly? And, we're still in a very young period on this, but EFF has been doing this for 20 years, and, it's a good thing we called ourselves a frontier organization, because we knew we would be on the frontier throughout.
Always on the frontier.
But I want to talk to you about sexuality, because I think, if you're talking about the future, I think, the internet does a lot of things.
Well, and if you want to talk about cultures rubbing up against each other and not liking each other.
Right. No, right. And oh, yeah, absolutely. And the politics of sexuality in America during my lifetime, the conversation between the sexes has been such a trip. So it's great to be talking to you. Do you think of yourself as a porn star in some respects?
No.
No, not at all.
No, I'm not a performer.
No, I know you're not a performer, but you have a flavor. For example, the Republic, the whatever it is of Libya. I don't know whether a republic or
My friends in Libya.
Right. Your friends in Libya who
Yes.
have decided that, you know, there is something innately pornographic about, you know, your presence there, because
About
when
my
somebody goes on
arms,
Twitter
actually.
and shortens one of your, you know, a URL that you're making use of, suddenly, you know, the fact that it's got a .ly matters.
Right.
I mean, you have been singled out.
Yes, absolutely. And it was really interesting teasing out of them exactly what was obscene, illegal, and pornographic about what the site was doing.
Right.
Because, and if you're unfamiliar, my business partner and I, we started a website called vb.ly based on Libyan domains when the domains opened up, and we're very popular like Bitly, and we created a link shortening service. And when we did it, it was never intended as any type of a political act. It was simply intended as an alternate link shortening service.
But why Libya? I mean, why not?
Because
why not Greenland or?
Well,
know?
because the domains had just opened up, and
Oh.
they were marketing themselves to a Western audience, and 2 letters. I got 2 letters that were available, and we read through all the terms and conditions on the site as they were at the time, which they have since changed them.
And it didn't strike you that Muammar Gaddafi was going to be at least sort of nominally in control of that domain?
Not at all. No, not the Libyan.
It's postmodernist thinking.
Yes. Well, it's
Really?
actually what it is. It's open internet thinking. Is what.
Oh,
it
I know.
is.
I mean, it's the future that I predicted, and here we are.
Yeah, and so we put one photograph on it, which was of me holding a beer, looking kind of smarmy, with my arms bare, and simply said it was the world's first sex-positive link shortening service, in that we wouldn't censor your links. Of course, you know, we took out anything that was illegal, anything that was spam, anything that was problematic, anything that would get reported, and we were very diligent. And they asked me to renew, so we renewed, and about a month after we renewed, they took the domain offline. And it took us a long time to get in touch with them, and smartly kept a paper trail asking, you know, eventually why. Then when we could finally get to a human, they said, what you're doing is illegal and you know it. And we said, well, what are we doing? And as it turned out, we were violating Sharia law, which is Libyan religious law, and which I thought...
As applied to the internet.
As applied to the internet. And it wasn't, we had no content on the site except for the photograph. It was a service we were running off of the site. So we actually had no, people were emailing me going, where was the porn on your site? I was like,
well, I know, I mean...
Can you show me now? And I was like...
No, in the resulting kerfuffle, I mean, that was the point at which, you know, and I've been familiar with your work for a while, and, you know, suddenly somebody referred to you as a porn star, and I said, wait a second.
No.
You know, this is how... Well, I mean, but that was probably an artifact of old media
That
as
was
well
Fox
as new.
News, actually.
Yeah,
that was Fox.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Fox they were the word.
No, that's new media too, in a very interesting way.
Yeah.
I
No,
mean,
what
we didn't used to have media like that before. I don't think.
No, what I thought was interesting was that, okay, you know, the idea of whether or not the website was a political statement completely doesn't matter when you think about the idea of religion and religious law being applied to the policing of CCTLDs.
It is a political statement.
It is, well, it has become one.
No, but don't you think it was all along? I mean, you seem to have an angle that puts a political context around your sexuality. Maybe not.
Perhaps.
I mean,
I just noticed that whenever I get
wanna
into a
tease that
fight,
out.
it ends up in the New York Times.
What's that?
I just noticed that whenever I get into a fight, it ends up in the New York Times. So maybe it's just that what I'm saying
Better than the
is-
New York Post.
Yeah.
You're getting in the right kind of fight.
No, but what I think is interesting from an EFF angle is that when you have religious law and an open internet, suddenly you're in an enormous gray area.
Well, that was the idea. I mean, you know, and it will go on being gray. You know, it's very, but you know, there is this relationship between cyberspace and meat space. It's very interesting. I mean, it's just exactly the relationship between the mind and the body. So it's sort of germane here. You know, I mean, you know that there is the mind in its abstraction, and you know that there is the body in its concreteness, or squishy concreteness.
Yes.
But, you know, the area between those two things is and always has been and always probably will be a very difficult zone to define.
I think so.
And that's going to be true on this planet as a mind, don't you think?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I think the controversy, though, that you were suggesting about my message is that it's a sex-positive message, and that it is...
Who's not for sex? Oh,
a lot of people.
Excuse me, I guess there are people who are nervous about it, but I mean, I think basically everybody's pretty much for it.
Well, you would think so, but I seem
Well, I
to
mean,
keep
there are a lot of
finding
people.
A lot of people that don't.
I mean, in the world. So.
Yeah, but I mean, when you come from the approach that it's an inherently good thing, it's pretty upsetting to some people.
Like, apparently.
Yes. Especially
well,
if you proceed
you know,
with
I mean,
registration.
Yeah, I mean, but it seems generally to be upsetting to people who are devoutly attached to one of the three major monotheistic religions. Maybe that's a narrow characterization, but it strikes me that all three of those religions are, as I thought they would be, under very severe attack from the internet by virtue of their having a doctrine based on a very concrete set of written words. They have a book. They all have a book, or
Right.
a set of books. And now we are creating, you know, books upon books upon books upon books of opinion and other countervailing argument and, you know, very pantheistic model. You know, and they're reacting in this way. And sexuality just happens to be one of the, you think it's just like one of the battlements that they have chosen
Yes.
with which to protect themselves against the general horde of horizontalism as opposed to verticalism.
Right. No pun intended.
Glad to find there is one there, and it certainly is. But
So, do you think that with the radical distribution of ideas that run counter to cultures that need to maintain their rules and their laws, specifically like their religious rules and laws, to keep the status quo, what do you see as the future in this respect?
Well,
do you think that there's going to be such dissemination of information that these cultures either must evolve or they get blown apart, or do you see them tightening down and clamping down and...
Well, I'm an old acid head, so I remember a point in about 1966 in this city where I thought that God was about to jump through the transom, and you know, and everything, you know, a new age would be upon us immediately, and you know, then everything started to leave the rails to the point where I was even alarmed, and then you know, then there was the understandable reaction of all of the powers that had been to this way of looking at things that was fundamentally disturbing. You know, it was about, you know, the end of God-given authority. It was about, you know, turning humanity into a spiritual species that had a direct, unmediated contact with the holy, that didn't come through the book or anything else. And I have seen, you know, the last 40 years of American history be nothing but this endless, horrible battle between the 50s and the 60s, between monotheism and pantheism, and between, you know, the seriously endangered forces of what had been the status quo up to that point in a state of reaction. And just because I think monotheism is going to be on its last legs for the next 200 or 300 years doesn't mean it's going to be easy to be around it. I mean, if you're locked in the closet with a dying dinosaur, the fact that he is moribund is faint comfort.
So it's like having a cranky roommate.
Oh,
on the internet.
Such cranky roommates. Man, so I don't know. You know, I think it's brave what you do. I mean,
Thank
by
you.
You know, and I think it's and EFF does what it does to make sure that what you do can go on being done as many places as possible. Though I also think that we have to learn how to be somewhat less in one another's face about this stuff. I mean, I find that people are very intolerant of the religious now, and very inflexible in their attitude towards what they perceive to be the inflexibility of the religious.
Do you see that just as a necessary reaction?
Well, I don't know that there is a necessary reaction. That's just it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I think that it could be that the advisable reaction, not the predictable one, but the advisable reaction is somewhat more
Tolerant?
I'm not even tolerant. I mean, I don't like the word tolerant. I think
Why?
it's because it's condescending as hell.
Nice.
You know, it is. I mean, I tolerate you.
Well, I see it a lot.
I don't want to be tolerated. I want to be respected. I don't, and you know.
Yes, and I think that
and so do you.
a lot of queer people would agree with you.
Yeah.
They say, you know, tolerance is, you know, it's what's bandied about in mainstream media as this is how we accept the other.
No,
but it's no, we just all want to be the same as
and furthermore, I
everyone
mean, I
else.
think that, you know, as far as tolerance is concerned, you know, the first business of tolerance is to be at minimum tolerant toward that which would not tolerate you.
Yes.
I mean, that's, you know, if you can't get that one right, the rest of it is junk. Liberty resides in the rights of that person whose views you find most odious, is what John Stuart Mill said. And that includes people that, you know, that includes, unfortunately, at the moment, some people that are protesting at servicemen's funerals because they say that, you know, they've died to defend homosexuality. God.
Do you think that around that, because there has been so much outcry and activism online in this particular instance against Westboro, it's Westboro, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to single them out. I mean, but I only single them out as being an example of something that I find hard to defend, but nevertheless necessary.
Right. Do you believe that there is a self-correcting nature of the open internet in this?
Well, you know, this is another one. You know, I used to, what is truth, right? And in reality, as far as I know, is just, you know, the story that we collectively tell ourselves about it. I mean, preferably collectively. Sometimes, you know, not. But I just felt like we would, you know, enter into this great conversation where there would be a natural sort of corrective to untruth.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that you didn't need to worry about slander because, you know, good speech would drive out bad. And there is evidence that this can work and is working. I mean, Wikipedia, I mean, to me, Wikipedia is one of the most optimistic generations of the human race that I've ever seen. That, you know, I mean, it is phenomenal. I knew Jimmy Wales when he was first starting it, and I said, you know, you have an even more sunny view of humanity than I do, and I'm pretty optimistic. He said, well, we'll see how it goes. And I have yet to read anything there that I don't think is accurate, that I know about personally.
I have had a stalker who threatened me personally, editing the Wikipedia page about me for the past 4 years.
Yeah, but there are correctives.
And has published my address on Wikipedia, on my Wikipedia page. And so I think it's, I think there's a lot of conflict in that optimism.
Okay, well, I mean, yeah, but I mean, actually, the other
look at
part,
the page on
the other part
circumcision,
of it
it's
is that
locked.
there is, oh, sure,
Seriously.
sure. But
I
I mean, the
can't
other part
say-
of it is that there are, you know, Wikipedia, I was going to say, is a good example, and even within that, there are, as you say, lamentable consequences of human beings being themselves. But you know, there also, you know, I realize now that there are a lot of people who are not interested in the truth, actually. I mean, that
Yes.
they don't like, you know, it's easy enough to find out whether or not Barack Obama is a Muslim, but nevertheless, 19% of the American people believe that he is and actually do not have any interest in not believing that he is. So, I mean, the truth is what you want to believe, too.
It's subjective.
Yeah.
Thank
it
you
is.
so much. I could
Thank
talk to
you.
you for 19 hours.
Well, let's do that. We don't have to restrict the conversation to this.
Okay, good.